The idea of two world champions has been going on for so long in the WWE, we just accept it now. Doesn't mean it makes it any easier when a non-fan asks how you can have two people that are considered the best in the world, but who cares? Just say that boxing does it, even though they have multiple weight categories. Throughout the years, it's also translated into some fascinating pairings in terms of who is holding what belt at the same time. Don't forget at one point we had Jinder Mahal and Brock Lesnar in this role. Knowing how fans feel about both of those people is all you need to imagine the backlash it received. It was a fun time all round. There's also been occasions where it's been fantastic to have two of the very best representing their individual brands though, which adds a real boost to the card and product in general. You can watch Raw and smile and then do the same on SmackDown knowing that match quality and promos will be high. There ain't nothing wrong with that. I'm Simon from What Culture. Remember to smash that subscribe button, and this is the 10 best simultaneous WWE Heavyweight Champions. Number 10, John Cena and Mark Henry in 2011. John Cena was the WWE Champion, Mark Henry was the World Heavyweight Champion, and nobody knew that in 2 years' time the latter was going to trick the former in one of the best fake retirement angles in history. The reason Henry ended up in that position to begin with is what was happening here, as he excelled in his Hall of Pain persona and ruined everybody that got in his way. It was bizarre that we ended up with these two at the top of the chain to begin with, given this was the summer of Punk that should have seen CM launched into the stratosphere. But as WWE sorted that out, they drafted in the always reliable Cena to get the belt off Alberto Del Rio and hold the fort until things were back in place. Wasn't that bad, all things considered. Over on SmackDown, even though there wasn't much of a brand split during this period, Henry was still acting like a monster over there, and on Raw when he wanted to, and really came into his own. 15 years of working away, and he arrived in this moment. It certainly worked, so Vince McMahon deserves credit for that, but the fact that Daniel Bryan and Punk were back on top before the year was out kinda sums up what was going on. We shall get into that later though. Number 9, Edge and Kurt Angle in 2006. It was Edge who was the WWE champ and Angle who had the World Heavyweight gold 13 years ago, and both did their bit instantly. The Rated R superstar increased ratings on Raw while Kurt's jump to SmackDown shook up the roster and shocked a lot of people when he won the title vacated by Batista. To keep it nice and simple, this rocked because it was a change of pace. It wasn't Big Dave and Super Cena that we'd all got used to, and the young upstarts had earned their stripes, creating a genuine connection with the fans. It was also, of course, when Edge showed the world how the Money in the Bank briefcase worked, which sparked a fire under WWE. The interesting thing now is what it meant for both of them. While this was the start of Edge's rise, it was the end of Angle's, who would leave WWE for TNA just a few months later. Number 8, Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit in 2004. Hard to talk about today for many reasons. There was a time where Eddie Guerrero was the WWE champion and Chris Benoit was the World Heavyweight Champion, even after being told for years they would never be in that role. Seems like some people were wrong. Coming to a head at WrestleMania 20 in front of a Madison Square Garden audience who knew what the pair had been through and how good their in-ring work was, Eddie and Chris were cheered like heroes, and it just felt like a moment. A reminder that no matter what you're told, if you can become a master of your craft and be consistent, you never know what opportunities will come your way. For the most loyal followers, it was almost unbelievable. The land of the Giants brought to its knees by guys who were once called vanilla midgets by Kevin Nash. While their following runs weren't exactly home runs, Guerrero struggled with the pressure, whereas Benoit never really evolved into his responsibilities away from matches. It's not like it was a bomb, and there was more than enough evidence to suggest there was room for another attempt down the line. For now, it's a footnote as other more prevalent stories sit higher in the conversation totem pole, but still. If you were following WWE in 2004, this was like some sort of weird dream. Ironically, now looking back, it feels eerily similar. Number 7, John Cena and the Great Khali in 2007. Yep, you heard that right. Don't adjust your YouTube watching device. We are saying that at one time when Cena was the WWE champ and Khali was the World Heavyweight champ, things were rosy in the company. Just listen. It all started when, after proving his mettle against Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania and in an hour-long match on Raw, fans started to see Cena in a different light. Maybe he could actually wrestle. He threw more evidence in the tank when at One Night Stand, John took on Khali and dragged him to a more than passable fight. That is pretty good. If you have the network, just go and watch it for proof. Maybe because of that, a month later the Giant was anointed the champ when Edge got injured, and while he didn't smash it out the park each and every time, you could utterly believe this huge man would take the title hostage, and another scrap with Batista was also pretty decent. Between them, they steered the good ship WWE in an okay direction. As well as this, KHALI was a draw. Years later, when WWE tried this again with Jinder Mahal, the results were mixed, but KHALI was a hero to those outside of the US, with his YouTube videos on WWE's YouTube channel often flying past 50 million views. He may not have been your cup of tea, but he absolutely did the job he was asked. Sometimes you gotta give credit where it's deserved. Number 6, CM Punk and Christian in 2011. This is so interesting because Vince McMahon never really loved CM Punk, who was the WWE champ in 2011, and nor was he overly keen on Christian, who held the World Heavyweight Championship at the same time. This was proven when 2 days after Captain Charisma had won his prize, he lost it again to Randy Orton. That was still cool as it triggered a feud between those two which rocked, but still, it was a very up and down relationship at the time, and nobody knows more about ups and downs than me. Over on Raw, Punk was being his usual self and doing everything on his terms. Toppling John Cena at Money in the Bank and then leaving the company in one of the hottest stories in years. It was around this time when Christian also became a champion again by spitting in the Viper's face to get a DQ in a match that favored him. It just felt like a different time for WWE, and the feel of having this pair at the top of the heap was refreshing. Fans were tired of the same old, and this was the exact opposite. As ever, WWE never went full in with it, but still, at least for a few weeks, we just got to enjoy it for what it was. Number 5, CM Punk and Daniel Bryan in 2011. Happening just a few months on from this, Christian had been replaced with Daniel Bryan, and it was just as good if not better. The fact this even happened was incredible, given that both at one point were meant to be fired from WWE. That is quite the change, and why in late 2011 Raw dedicated its opening to celebrating these two indie warriors who had toppled Vince McMahon's empire. Really though, if we were to tear away the top layer, it was only really Punk who was flying at his highest here. Bryan was about to start a movement all of his own, but at this stage he was more of an obnoxious heel that people wanted to punch in the face rather than chant and rave for. From an insider's perspective, however, it was joyous because on the aforementioned edition of Raw, we still had CM Punk teaming with Bryan and the new US champion Zack Ryder, and it seemed like a new dawn had arrived. It hadn't, as ever, because before we got to WrestleMania, the latter two had been hurled into the ground. It wasn't going to be an easy ride for Punk either, but they still managed to beat the machine before all was said and done. Kinda. Number 4, Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair in 2019. We miss Ronda Rousey in August 2019, the day that I'm saying these words. I say it like that because she could turn up at any time, really, but using hindsight as a tool, she really did add something to the women's division. Despite some fan outcry to the contrary, it was the same with Charlotte Flair. When Rousey was running wild on Raw and Flair on SmackDown, things felt good in the land of WWE. This was even more impressive because the Queen had won back her title by beating Asuka out of nowhere on an episode of SmackDown just to give some extra promotion to the upcoming triple threat match at WrestleMania. With that in mind, though, damn right this happened. Rousey, Flair, and Becky Lynch didn't main event the show of shows because it was good PR or the right thing to do. They were there because they deserved it. The story and performers in it warranted the spot. It meant there was two credible champions leading into Mania, which also meant when Lynch won, it elevated her further. That's smart booking all around, and if and when Ronda does return, she has a ready-made story with the man. If only all wrestling threads were this seamless. Number 3, the new Daniel Bryan and Brock Lesnar in 2018. The real joy about Lesnar being the Universal Champion and Bryan being the WWE Champ was that they got to clash at the Survivor Series in 2018. Neither title was on the line, but seeing a fight that a lot of people had wanted to see for years rocked. They didn't let us down. It had more impact as Bryan had shocked the world days earlier when he beat AJ Styles in a moment of poetic irony. A year previous, the Phenomenal One had done the same to Jinder Mahal to steal away his match with the Beast, and now Daniel had gone and done the same. This was one of those matches where Lesnar was ready to go to war as well, as he allowed Daniel to pepper him with shots, including just straight up stamping on his head. Eventually it was Brock's power that would seal him the victory, but Bryan looked anything but weak. Was just bettered on this evening. From here, Lesnar also clashed with Finn Balor, which fans enjoyed, and Daniel slowly segued into his feud with Kofi Kingston. The fact they both lost at WrestleMania, well, it's just a very nice way to wrap it all up. Number 2, John Cena and The Undertaker in 2007. Who thought John Cena would feature so heavily, eh? Stands to reason. He was the champion a lot during these dual eras, which was the case in 2007 when he held the WWE title and The Undertaker laid claim to World Heavyweight Gold. It was somewhat of a renaissance for the dead Dead Man, who found his rhythm again during this period after beating Batista at WrestleMania, and as already mentioned, Cena had done the same thing when going toe-to-toe with Shawn Michaels. John would go away after getting injured in October, but Taker went from strength to strength, continuing to feud with Big Dave and having some barn burners with Edge. They still hold up today as well. Go and watch. It was a nice double pairing too, as it was almost like WWE's locker room leaders showing the up-and-comers how it was done, and it's only fair to say the Rated R superstar benefited from it all immensely. All of this even got Cena cheered for around about 8 seconds when he made his surprise return at the Royal Rumble in 2008, or maybe that was just because it was a surprise. Number 1, John Cena and Batista in 2005. Look who's back again, but let's get into the facts. Not only is WrestleMania 21 still one of the highest drawing pay-per-views in WWE history, but as it was built around the coming of age of both John Cena and Batista, it's hard to argue that it wasn't very well done. The idea was to prove that the two could overthrow the evil overlords in JBL and Triple H respectively, who by this time had probably held on to their titles longer than was necessary. Seeing them both lose, however, was cathartic to fans across the globe. It was the hope for tomorrow as the next generation took their positions at the top of the heap, and it did result in audiences returning to WWE to see what was going on. Cena and Big Dave were trusted too, as both almost had year-long runs with their gold, which meant even when they had been relieved of them, everybody saw them as main event guys. This was the idea, and it worked wonderfully. And let's face it was also here that the storyline between these two started. By the time Batista quit the company in 2010, it was because he felt like WWE had chosen Cena over him. That was kinda true, and there was kind of a payoff 5 years later. That is alright, my friends. That is alright all around. Know of any other best simultaneous WWE Heavyweight Champions? Make sure you let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Then head over to whatculture.com and read yourself some articles, and follow What Culture on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. My name is Simon from What Culture, and I will chat to you again soon.